is 92 years old, a resident of the Fairfax County, Virginia since 1955. He is Japanese American, a veteran of World War II, the Korean War, and was a CIA official evacuated out of Vietnam on the last day, April 30, 1975. It should be noted that Grant Ichikawa's family was interned in World War II because of their Japanese ancestry. An unconstitutional act for which President Reagan signed the Civil Liberties Act of 1988 that provided a presidential apology and redress for Japanese Americans. Grant Ichikawa is a recipient of the Congressional Gold Medal of Honor for his outstanding service to our country. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a great honor to introduce to you a Fairfax County resident, Grant Ichikawa.
Okay, got it, yeah. Madam Bova, members of the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors, Cora Foley, members of the new American citizens, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very honored to be here, and like she said, I'm 92 years old, so I have my hearing is a little bad, my sight is bad too, and I'm almost there. This is a message for the new Americans today. First, you have been given a very valuable gem, more valuable than diamonds. You can buy diamonds, but you cannot buy what you're getting today, even for $1 million. So protect it and guard it with your life. Second, this gem, your American citizenship, will open doors for you, giving you opportunities which you never had as a legal resident here. You can apply for jobs which were previously denied to you, and keep your personal record clean so that you can apply for these jobs. Like her, she's citizen, new citizen many years ago. Third, with an American passport, you will be respected in most countries. And when you travel, respect your citizenship. Do not dishonor your new status, your new passport. Fourth, you were given a very valuable gem, the U.S. citizenship of the greatest country in the world. Many soldiers gave their lives for this country, so that you can enjoy the fruits of their sacrifice. So give a part of your time to say thank you. You could volunteer for some community service, or if you live near a veterans hospital, you could volunteer your time to help veterans who are severely wounded. And some of you, 5 of you, even volunteered for the U.S. Armed Services. Thank you. Fifth, America is made up of many people from many different countries, culture, and languages. Keep them. Remember, you are an American. Learn to speak, read, write well. Remember, English should be eventually your first language. Gradually learn to speak English at home. Look at me. I'm an Asian American. English is my first language. However, I have an advantage over you. I was born here. I want to tell you a little bit about my background so that you can better understand what I'm trying to say today. I am a Japanese American born in this country, and both my parents came from Japan in early 1900, but they could not be naturalized until 1952. In 1790, shortly after the country was formed, Congress passed law declaring only aliens who are a white person who have been in the country 2 years can be naturalized. 83 years later, in 1873, Congress passed legislation allowing those of African nations to become naturalized. That left only the Asian left people from the Asian countries who could not be naturalized. In 1982, Congress passed the Chinese Exclusion Act, preventing Chinese workers from entering this country for the next 60 years. In 1920, Congress passed the Alien Land Law, which allowed only those who can be naturalized to buy land, and that effectively prevented all those of Asian ancestry from buying land in California, and soon the other states followed. On December 7, 1941, when Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, as a result, it was the beginning of a war with Japan, and the entire nation turned against everything Japanese, including us, who were of Japanese ancestry. The U.S. government wrongly assumed that we were loyal to Japan and considered us to be enemy aliens. Every person of Japanese ancestry living on the 3 West Coast states of California, Oregon, and Washington were rounded up and put into internment camp, even though over half of us were American citizens. I was one of the 120,000 persons who were placed in an internment camp. Our draft status was changed to 4C, meaning enemy alien. So we were no longer actually citizens. We were, by practice, enemy aliens. We were first placed in a temporary army stockade in Turlock, California, with high barbed wire fences guarded by U.S. Army soldiers. Our family of 5 shared a horse stall with another family of 3. Our family of 5, we slept on hay mattresses. That first night probably was the lowest point in my life, wondering what has happened to us. How can we prove that we are not enemy aliens, but loyal Americans? Then we were transferred to our permanent internment camp, which was in Gila River, Arizona. And we were just languishing there, wondering how we can prove we are loyal Americans. We couldn't do that in the Army because we are now enemy aliens, and the Army will not take us. However, in November 1942, there was a team that arrived from MIS Language School in Minnesota looking for linguists to fight against Japan, the very country we were accused of being loyal to. I wanted to volunteer, so I took the test, and 25 others also volunteered, and we were sent to Minnesota, Fort Snelling, Minnesota, where we were given Army uniform. We were sworn in as private, and that's how I began my Army career. That was the beginning of the most interesting part of my life. After graduation, I was sent to Australia, and later we moved to Manila, and we saw Japan surrender on August 15, 1945, after 2 atomic bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. My first job during occupied Japan was to be on the atomic bomb survey unit, and I saw Hiroshima just flattened just by 1 bomb. It had a tremendous effect on me. In 1947, I was discharged and returned to California, but I was recalled as a first lieutenant in 1950, recall for the Korean War. I told the Army that I was not an infantry officer, although my branch of service was infantry, and so I should not be recalled because I was an intelligence officer. I got a telegram back from the Army, collect. I had to pay for that telegram. and they told me I had to report as ordered, so I got recalled, and fortunately I ended up in Hokkaido because of my interrogation specialty. However, if I had gone to Korea, maybe I won't be here today because a number of my friends died in Korea. In 1943, the U.S. government, in a change of heart, authorized the formation of the activation of 100 Battalion to be sent to Europe, and they authorized the formation of all Japanese American combat unit, the 442nd Regimental Combat Team. They won in Europe, fighting in Europe. They gave their best. They won 21 Medal of Honor and many other medals. The 100 Battalion and the 442 Regimental Combat Team became the most decorated unit in the U.S. Army history. When they returned to the U.S. at the end of the war, they were reviewed by President Truman at the White House, White House ellipse, who stated that you fought the enemy abroad and you fought prejudice at home, and you won. This was the attempt from the highest level of the government to change discrimination. As a result, in 1952, Congress passed legislation which allowed everyone to be naturalized. The Japanese immigrants who came to the U.S. in early 1900 were allowed to be naturalized for the first time in 40 years. President signed the Civil Liberty Act apologizing for the internment of the Japanese American. I gave you a little background to know that when Japan bombed Pearl Harbor, the Japanese Americans, although U.S. citizens by birth, were rounded up as enemy alien and thrown into an internment camp. And many had one mission in mind by joining the Army. They wanted to prove that they are loyal Americans. 800 Japanese Americans made the ultimate sacrifice by giving their lives during the war, and they are honored at the Japanese American Memorial in Washington, D.C. I hope you people have a chance to see that, because it is a very, very good memorial telling the people the history of Japanese American during World War II. A final note, last year Congress passed Bill S-1055, granting Congressional Gold Medal, the highest civilian award, to the World War II Japanese American soldiers of the 100th Infantry Battalion, the 442 Regimental Combat Team, which fought in Europe, and those of the Military Intelligence Service who fought in the Pacific. It was signed by President Obama on October 5, 2010, and I was invited to the White House to observe the signing of this bill. The Speaker of the House will officially present the Congressional Gold Medal latter part of this year. That will be quite an honor. Good luck to your life as American citizens, and we are all very, very proud of you. Thank you for this opportunity and honor to speak to you today. Thank you. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are now going to give a proclamation to our Japanese American World War II veterans. Many of you probably appreciate that we went through a rather dark period in our country's history immediately after Pearl Harbor, a time when we did not treat people well. And really about 2,000 citizens were forced to leave their homes. They were in internment camps. It was not one of our brighter moments as a country. But in 1943, that sentiment began to change, and we had a number of very brave Japanese Americans who stepped forward and said, we want to serve our country. This is our country, and we want to serve in it. And we have representatives today of one of those units that experienced the highest casualties of any unit in our armed forces at that time, the 442nd Regiment, which saw action, in all the places that you really said to yourself, oh my goodness, will I come home in one piece? And most of their colleagues did not. But Terry Shima, who now lives in Gaithersburg, has made a lifetime, really, of making sure that we as a community do not forget what they did and their sacrifice. And so, Mr. Shima, we would be most grateful for you to join us and come forward here. And with those who have come with you, you can invite. You may. So, and Mr. County Executive, did you want to speak, please?
I want to join with Mr. Berliner and recognizing those who have served, not just in this war, but all wars, but most particularly this war, because one of the tenets of our history and legacy is to treat people with dignity and respect, to be treated in a way described by historians in a way that was not befitting of America, but yet and still to come forth and to serve under some very difficult circumstances and conditions. There's a historical piece that is out now on Showtime talking about the untold story of American history that clearly reflects much of what we've talked about here today. So I want to, on behalf of all of our nearly 1 million residents, first of all, to offer our apologies, more importantly, to thank you and all of those who've served over so many years. And that just does not go to the service personnel, but to their families and their children who suffered as well. And so this is our attempt to thank you, but we can never fully thank you enough for your service, and we can never move away the scars and the pain that people have suffered in the past. But it's our recognition today to at least to continue that process.
Mr. Shima, before you speak, let me read this proclamation in your honor and the honor of all of your community who served us so beautifully. And please come forward. Whereas, when World War II began in December 1941, many Japanese Americans who wanted to join the military and fight for their country instead found themselves among the 117,000 persons who were labeled security risks and sent to internment camps scattered across the United States. And whereas in 1943, from those in internment camps, the United States military formed segregated units of volunteer Japanese Americans who would become the 442nd Regimental Combat Team, who would go on to fight in 8 major campaigns in Italy, France, Germany, and North Africa. And whereas the 442nd, combined with other units of Japanese Americans of the 100th Infantry Battalion, the 522nd Field Artillery Battalion, and more than 6,000 who joined the military intelligence services, went on to distinguish themselves proudly while serving their nation at war. And whereas the 442nd fought fiercely, embracing its motto of "Go for broke," in a manner such that 93% of all its members were either wounded or killed in action. But the feats of its soldiers were such that the 21 of its members were eventually awarded the Medal of Honor, our nation's highest military award, and the unit still holds the distinguished honor of being the most decorated unit in United States military history. And whereas full recognition of the 442nd did not occur until 70 years later, after the conclusion of the war, when on November 2nd, 2011, the 442nd Regimental Combat Team was awarded the Congressional Gold Medal, the highest honor given to U.S. citizens. and many of those recognized had chosen to call Montgomery County their home over the past 7 decades. Now, therefore, do we, Isaiah Leggett as County Executive and Roger Berliner as County Council President, hereby recognize the Japanese American veterans of World War II and thank them for overcoming one of the most difficult periods in United States history and for making the heroic sacrifices that helped create the world as we know it today. Signed this 27th day of November in the year 2012, Isaiah Leggett, County Executive, and Roger Berliner, County Council President.
Montgomery County President Berliner, County Executive Leggett, honorable members of the council, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to thank the council for this very high honor. We are very grateful for the proclamation, sir, that you have just read. To say a few words, during the darkest days of the Japanese-American history immediately following the Pearl Harbor attack, when our loyalty was questioned and enlistments were prohibited, we petitioned the government to allow us to serve in combat, as Council President Berliner said. The Army responded by deploying the 100 Battalion, a segregated Japanese-American unit, to Italy, and subsequently activated the 442nd Regimental Combat Team, which was also deployed to Italy, and the two organizations merged. The Army gave us very tough assignments in Italy and France, including the rescue of the trapped Texas Battalion in the Vosges forests of northeastern France. They were doomed for annihilation. The 442nd sustained huge casualties, but saved 211 Texans. At the same time, some 3,000 Japanese Americans served in the Asia-Pacific theater as translators of captured enemy documents, as interrogators of prisoners of war, and as interceptors of enemy communication. They produced valuable intelligence, and General MacArthur called them his eyes and ears. When the war was over, America turned its attention to rebuilding America and the world. General Marshall reminded Washington there was still one more issue to resolve, and that was the Japanese issue, the integration of the Japanese into the American community. The Army called on the 442nd. The 442nd was returned from Italy as a group, marched down Constitution Avenue, and was reviewed by President Truman at the Ellipse. President Truman said, "You fought the enemy abroad, and you fought prejudice at home, and you won." This was the highest level effort on the part of the government to turn the tide of discrimination the other way. President Truman's words resonated across the country, supported by editorials, one of which won the Pulitzer. The combat performance record of the 442nd Regimental Combat Team and the Tuskegee Airmen contributed to the desegregation of to the reforms in the armed forces, including the desegregation. They leveled the playing field so all minorities could compete for any position and any rank. Fast forward to the Vietnam War. During the Vietnam War, 43 Japanese Americans would be serving as pilots and navigators of aircraft. They were served in the most sensitive war planning positions. They served in aircraft as pilots and navigators, all with ranks of major, lieutenant colonel, and colonels. During World War II, The highest rank of a Japanese American was a major, and there were only 4. Also, following the Vietnam War, over 40 Japanese Americans would be promoted to admirals and generals, with one serving as Chief of Staff of the United States Army, wearing 4 stars. On the civilian side, there would be equal reforms. The Commission on Wartime Relocation and the Internment of Civilians concluded that internment was not necessary, that it was caused by war hysteria, racial prejudice, and the failure of political leadership. Then, in August of 1988, the Civil Liberties Act was passed, where President Ronald Reagan offered a formal apology for the incarceration of 120,000 ethnic Japanese. More recently, the United States Senate selected from among them a Japanese American to serve as President pro tempore of the United States Senate, a position constitutionally that puts him 3rd in line for the presidency. And only 70 years ago, this same Japanese American was classified 4C, enemy alien, unfit for military duty. Ladies and gentlemen, what this speaks of the greatness of America. God bless the USA.
Do you want to speak to maybe your children are here?